Hello out there, and today we're going to be talking about the 10 things that you need to know about this Bestech Ornetta. But first, let me just say thank you to the people at Bestech for sending this my way, to the way of the pass around group for a bunch of us to check out. I am among the first to be able to see it, so really thankful for that. But let's get right into number one, and number one is a number of different variations. 3 different configurations for this knife. There is also a blue version. I think that one has like a satin finish. There's a green one that might be stonewash. I might be getting those mixed up, but pictures are coming in right here. And then there's this like black wash version with a almost like a steampunky kind of color on the handle, also sort of like black washed as well. And just looking at these from pictures, I thought maybe the blue one was the most attractive, and without a doubt, this knife, this knife is just really impressing me in the way that it looks. So as far as the 3 variations go, sure, I've only handled this one, but this is definitely a beauty and a good-looking one. All right, sliding right into number 2, we have this right here, M390. So this is the first ever Bestech that has M390 blade steel. So it is a new step, a new direction for them. M390 is obviously a pretty high-end steel that a lot of people like. As far as the blade goes, I'm really impressed with the blade shape, and yeah, just really digging it. It sort of reminds me with this belly here of a Matthew Lurch. So yeah, pretty nice flat grind, and the performance, I carried this a lot more than I expected to, actually, because I haven't really wanted to put it down, and the knife cut really well. It performed, hasn't gone dull really at all yet, so maybe by the time it gets to the end of the pass round it will, but hasn't happened for me yet, not even a little bit. And then, yeah, number 3, talking more about some Bestech history and ways that they've improved the billboarding. And yeah, billboarding for me has never been that big of a deal, but some of the stuff from Bestech in the past has just been really blatant and sort of ruined the aesthetic of a blade. And here they sort of get it right, a little bit more standard with what you would expect. M390, it says right here, the designer's logo right here, and then their logo as well. So no big stamp the way it used to say like Starfighter or whatever it was on those other models. They do have some pretty big billboarding on the side of the box, but hey, that's the place to do it if you are going to do it, right? Number 4, probably the thing that I think about most when I think about this knife. Sure, it's a cutting tool, but 4 is clean design and the titanium details. All right, so many little details in this titanium frame, and so much work was put into making this just a beautiful artistic piece of titanium. Yeah, and other things to know, I mean, we'll get a little closer in just a second, but other things to note, if you look at the body screws that we have here, sure, we have the pivot, and then we have one screw here that holds the stainless steel insert, and then also the lock bar stabilizer, but then we have 1 pocket clip screw and 2 body screws. So 4 total screws apart from the pivot that are visible. Part of me thinks that there might have to be some internal screws like in this backspacer as well, sort of like right here, but I'm not taking the knife apart. I don't know what it looks like on the inside, but as far as just being clean, just very, very clean. And then I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a lot of these details in focus, and that would be a bummer if I can't. But actually, yeah, you can see where the light's hitting. See how the light's hitting the titanium? All those ridges, all those tiny little details, all that machining. It is done like impeccably. Even the pivot has these details. I mean, this knife is just a knife that you can just look at and spend a lot of time just looking at. And not get tired of doing it. One other thing that I really like is on the edges. We do have the gold pivot collar here, but on the edges, whatever anodizing or something that they did, when the light hits these edges, everything just looks sort of gold as well. So, yeah, I mean, it is just... I said how impressed I am already like 3 or 4 times, and I'm going to just keep repeating it. So anyway, getting into number 5, Number 5 is chamfering, so more aesthetic details, but also sort of functional ones because it just creates flow and ergonomics. When it comes to chamfering, you know, you expect it on like high-end knives. You expect to see, you know, good transitions from, sorry, struggling to get it focused, but you expect to see good transitions from, you know, from one plane to another. But the level that they have on this knife is just sort of bananas. I mean, this right here isn't an edge, it's a whole nother face, just a tiny little bit. I'm going to bring in another knife that does chamfering pretty well. You know, transitions, and you know, this is the Kaiser Theta, and I like this knife a lot because, you know, you have the edge, the top here, and then this transition, and you have this edge, and you see the surface area there, and that looks good, and they did a good job with it, and they do a good job, you know, as they go from one face to another. But here, it's just like so beyond that. That you just have all these different tiny little spots and faces where extra machining was done. They've like gone out of their way where in the design phase they could have, you know, pulled back and eased up and saved some time and really not gained too much more, or, you know, aesthetically, like they've gone the extra route every chance that they get. I mean, look at all that. It's just very, very impressive. Again, said it again. So that's number 5. Number 6, we're actually going to get into the only one thing that is a bit of a bummer about the knife. We're getting into the more functional aspects of it, and the only thing is the jimping. So the jimping on this knife, you can see it. It's not terrible. It's relatively deep. In this position right here, it's decent, but I would like to see it extended to here and be a little bit deeper, you know? I mean, the knife is very comfortable, so I'm not really having any big issues. But yeah, I'd like to see just a little bit more and something that's a little bit more aggressive, certainly. So yeah, a little bit of a bummer, and the only reason why it stands out as not being that great is because everything else on the knife really is so great. But number 7 is another big win, and it's a big one when it comes to functionality, and it's the choil. The forward choil here is it's a functional choil where you can choke up and use the knife in this configuration, which is great. But the thing that I really like about a forward choil is when it doesn't dictate that you have to use it. You know, there's a lot of knives that when you have that forward choil, you sort of can't use the knife without it. And you know, the CRKT Polar, which we talk about a lot, like, you know, that forward choil is sort of demanding that you use it. Ergonomically, the knife doesn't make nearly as much sense if you're not, you know, you're just too far away from the cutting edge with your forefinger. And you know, there's a number of other reasons why it just doesn't work, but one that really does work for me, you know, when you can cut with the Spyderco Domino without that forward choil or with it, and it's perfectly functional in both hand configurations. And the Bestech Ornetta here is exactly the same way. Like, it is really good in this configuration, and then you can also choke up, and yeah, just gives you a number of different, you know, opportunities to have different types of cuts. So yeah, something that a little bit of a surprise, because, you know, when I first saw this knife and how like sort of tricked out it is, I didn't expect it to be so good and so well thought out in actual use, but it definitely has that. Number 8, opening and closing. Multiple opening possibilities here. The main one is the flipper. Nice snappy action. But also you can sort of do the spider flick with the fuller here. And yeah, that works great. So pretty cool that we have that. This knife is pretty drop shutty too, as either you're watching right now if I inset another video, or maybe in the corner. But yeah, it is super duper smooth. So kudos to it there. And then number 9. All right, number 9 is about price, because yeah, hopefully by now you you understand that I really like this knife. But this knife is not a cheap one. This comes in at about $254. $254. It is yeah, not going to be for everybody. Not going to be easy to come by. This is, I think, the most expensive Bestech that has ever been made, at least the production one. And it's really them flexing their muscles. It's them saying, look at what we can do. And I mean, I hear you. I hear you, Bestech. I see what you can do. You can make a pretty darn good knife, and $254 is a lot of money, but that brings me into number 10, competitive options. Honestly, I think that if you look at other knives, at least knives that I have experience with in the $200, $250 price range, this is competitive, guys. It is. The M390 steel is right up there with what you would expect for that price point. The level of intricacy in the titanium, the functionality of the blade overall, it's right up there. I mean, the first knife that I thought of that I have that is in the same kind of price bracket, the ZT 0393. If you take a look at it, I mean, just the level of detail in the Bestech versus the ZT. Sure, you have 20 CV steel, with which a lot of people might prefer over M390. Pretty similar steels, though, if you ask me. And I don't think that the 393 has really anything over the Bestech in terms of function, look, performance. I mean, yeah, the Bestech is right neck and neck, if not better than the 393, and the price point, like I said, is comparable. Thinking about another one that I thought of was the Benchmade Griptilian in carbon fiber and M390 that DLT Trading has. That one's about $250 as well. Again, very competitive. This Bestech is. It's right up there, and there aren't very many knives that you're going to see this level of detail with. You know, at a cheaper price point. You think about the things that Knives is doing, and the Kaisers that are super nice and really expensive. Again, I think this is right up there with it. And the best competitive option, the best way that I can explain this knife is that I do not want to get rid of it. I do not want to send it to the next person. I want to keep it for myself. It is actually going on my list. This knife is on my list. I will have one of these one day. That's how much I like it. So I 100% think it's worth the money. Really stoked that I was able to get my hands on this one, guys. So yeah, those are the 10 things that you need to know. There's plenty more to talk about, but I think at this point you definitely get where where my head is when it comes to this knife. So thanks again to the people at Bestech, and yeah, I know that they are sort of an upstart, up-and-coming company still, but this knife sort of, in my mind, puts them in the arena of we can do anything that the other guys can do, and it does it in a very loud way. So yeah, great job from them, a great knife, and yeah, any other questions, comments, shoot me a line down below. Talk with you soon, guys.